Hello, this is Nathan here again with another success story with MeatRx. So today our guest is Gary, and he's going to tell us about his carnivore journey and success story. So hello, Gary. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm getting by. We just had our family carnivore dinner. So, so yeah. All right, I'm going to ask you a few questions. The first one
Yeah.
is, what was your life like before carnivore diet?
Well, you see, I've exercised my whole life quite hard. And I was eating what I thought was a healthy diet, a salad every day, some yogurt, a little bit of fruit, some nuts and seeds, not too many carbs, like maybe rice, and a little bit of meat, chicken or something. I eat that way. And I suddenly, about 5 years ago, I developed this psoriatic arthritis. My knees and feet started swelling up in my wrists, and the pain was excruciating. I was on a cane for almost a year. I would lay in bed all night long and sweat. And anytime I moved in any direction, it was agony. It was crazy. And it just seemed to go no way. And I went through all kinds of doctors' tests, blood samples, and all kinds of stuff. And they diagnosed it with psoriatic arthritis, and that I had to stay on medication for the rest of my life because my inflammation levels in my blood were like 9,000. And it was just it. I had to take uh, methotrexate and whatever. So I tried these
Mm-hmm.
things for a while, and basically the pain, it didn't help the pain. What helped the pain was CBD oil, basically,
Mm-hmm.
which was against all their advice, but that's what worked. Especially if it had a little bit of THC in it, the pain was gone. So of course, that's what I took. And but the
Heard,
swelling, I
heard
couldn't
that.
go downstairs. Couldn't go downstairs, and then my doctor at the time transferred me to her husband, who is a heart specialist here in town. They wanted to do a calcium picture of your arteries. I forget what it's called. It's a big $1 million machine. You go through it and it shows the calcium levels in your arteries. And they did that. And they said, you have the calcium buildup levels of a 90-year-old in your arteries. You're going to need open heart surgery soon, or stents for sure. And I asked him, well, what's that from? I says, I exercise all the time. I eat good. He says, oh, it's genetic. There's nothing you can do about it.
Huh.
So, and I had almost on the edge of, I was pre-diabetic. My blood samples showed that my A1C or whatever it was right on the edge of going into type 2 diabetes. And like this was
Mm-hmm.
like for me, who exercise an hour a day, every day at least, and eating what I thought was healthy, it didn't make any sense because I watched my mom and dad go get heart surgeries and all that crap, insulin, diabetes, and I wasn't going to do it. That's why I was eating. Part of the reason I ate so good and exercised. Well, my wife is a nurse, and she was totally establishment mentality, but this thing was a mystery
Mm-hmm.
to her. And so they put me through this calcium machine, first of all, and my levels were really high. And they wanted to put me on blood pressure pills, not because my blood pressure was high, it was normal, but just as a precaution. So they were trying to load me up with all kinds of things. And
And how old were you at the time, if I could interject there for a second?
that was like 5 years ago, it'd be about 62.
Okay, yeah.
And I was, even though I exercised all the time, I was about 30 pounds heavier than I am now. And I just, no matter how hard I worked, I was at the place where I had a little bit of rolls all in my stomach, which for me was not acceptable because had a sick
Mm-hmm.
back all my life, but I just couldn't keep this weight off. And I couldn't figure it out because I
Mm-hmm.
was eating and exercising. And well, everybody says it's just age. That's what happens. Metabolism slows down, all that shit. So my wife and me are driving down the highway going to Oregon. And I watch Joe Rogan podcasts once in a while because I like the MMA. I used to be a boxer and stuff like that. One time I hear my wife listening to a podcast with Joe Rogan, and she never watched the Joe Rogan. And I said
Mm-hmm.
to her, "Hey, what are you doing watching Joe Rogan?" She goes, "Oh, there's this doctor on here, this Dr. ShawnBaker, who deadlifts 700 pounds, and he holds the world's indoor rowing record, and he's 53 years old or something at the time, and he only eats meat." I said, "What?" "Yeah, just meat." And I said, we had started keto about 2 weeks before this. And I noticed an improvement. The pain was going away in my legs and stuff. But my wife said, "This guy eats only meat." And I said, "This is just retarded. It can't be, you know." But I phoned
Yeah.
ShawnBaker. Like, it was before he was really popular and you could get a hold of him in them days. And he would give you free
Yeah.
advice. Now you got to pay for it. But anyways,
Oh, well,
huh?
I don't know about that, but I don't know anything about that. He always replies to me, so
Well, he would reply, but if you ask a medical question, anyways,
mm-hmm.
I talked to him for a while, and he told me the research and all that stuff and who he knew, and he gave me Dr. Tim Noakes's YouTube name, and Bickman and Amber O'Hearn and Nina Teschultz and all that stuff. And so I said, "I'm going to do it." And my wife said, "Well, I'm going to do it too then." She's lost 70 pounds.
Could
She's
I?
61.
Oh,
Huh?
wow,
She's
that's impressive.
60.
I was just going to ask because
What?
because you said you had started keto. What led you to keto? Because that's a common
Well,
stepping stone. People will start keto and then find out about carnivore, and
what happened was my wife is a fanatic exerciser too, and
Mm-hmm.
exercised at least an hour a day every day, and she was slowly gaining a few pounds every year, no matter how hard she exercised. I'm talking running 5, 6 miles, just never losing. And she was getting very frustrated with her weight. And she's seen these two, she works in the hospital, and she hadn't worked on this one floor for about 8 or 9 months. And then these two nurses that always work on that floor, she didn't recognize them because they'd lost over 100 and something pounds each in like
Oh,
8 months or
wow.
something. And she said, "What have you been doing?" And they said, "Keto." And she said, "What's keto?" So she came back. She said, "I'm going to try this keto thing." And so I said, "Well, I'll do
Mm-hmm.
it." So that was about 2 weeks. And then we heard ShawnBaker on Joe Rogan. Of course, she was watching all kinds of videos by then.
Mm-hmm.
And ShawnBaker was on Joe Rogan. And I talked to Sean and got some emails back and forth, and listened to his thing every day that he used to put he used to talk every day. And you could chime in and ask questions. I think it's Instagram or something like that. Anyways, so I
Wow.
started the carnivore diet. What?
I was going to ask, was the arthritis the only uh, health problem you had? You said,
Well, the arthritis was the main one, the one that was killing me, and the swollen joints and the
yeah.
cane.
Yeah.
And the other one was that I was on the verge of going to need insulin or some kind of sugar diabetes. My
Oh, yeah, that's
A1C
right.
was
Yep.
right on the order. So it was that. And
Mm-hmm.
and I started to develop hemorrhoids too, which I never had. And the doctors told me, of course, that had nothing to do with the drugs they were putting me on and stuff like that for whatever. So after about 2 weeks on the carnivore, all the knee and joint pain went away. I could even go up and down stairs. And I started dropping weight. I had been
Mm-hmm.
dropping a little bit on the keto, but I lost about 35 pounds. And but my cholesterol level jumped to 490. So that
Mm-hmm.
is like super high. So my doctor said, "See, you're killing yourself." But I had run into Dave Feldman by then, the cholesterol king. And I met all these people in the
Mm-hmm.
Boulder World Carnivore Convention, by the way, Amber and Michaela and ShawnBaker and uh, Ken Berry and Dave and all
Oh,
those
yeah.
guys. Uh,
I'm
uh, about
jealous.
about a year into it, I met them all in Boulder and talked to them all and sat in there and listened to all their talks. There was many other people, Dr. Edie or out of Sweden and Bickman and all those people were there. So anyways, but by that time I'd been in it over a little over a year when I met them.
Mm-hmm.
But I lost weight and stayed skinny, and my cholesterol level stayed way high, like 500, and they called me a lean mass hyper responder. But my ratios between LDL, HDL, and my triglycerides was always good, which Dave says your ratio is good. That's all that matters. Don't worry about it. And so my doctor thinks I'm crazy, but she keeps taking my blood samples because she thinks you're going to die. You're going to kill your kidneys and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, the only complaint that I had, I mean, my blood pressure dropped, my A1C went down. The only complaint that they had legitimate after that was my cholesterol was high in their point of view. And I said, no, I'm not taking anything, nothing. And so about a year and a half into the carnivore, I started putting muscle back on. I had a hard time putting muscle on for over a year somehow. I was lean and not fat, but about a year and a half into it, a year, maybe 30, 14 months, I started putting on weight and muscle at 65 years old, doing the same exercising
Yeah.
I was done. I never quit exercising despite the pain. And so I gained that weight and my cholesterol dropped a couple hundred points around that time. So I went from a lean mass hyper responder to still a lean mass hyper responder, but on the low end, still above
Mm-hmm.
normal, 60, 270, but normal. So seemed like the
Interesting.
cholesterol had to go through the system for about a year, healing whatever it was healing, all the stuff that needed
Mm-hmm.
healing, the
Yep.
brain, the organs, I don't know what. And then when it was no longer needed, it just dropped off. That's how it happened with me. That's
Mm-hmm.
my. So
Yeah. Can I?
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, what were you eating during this time? Like, what would you say you eating a day?
Well, during that time, I would eat 6 or 7 Wendy's patties at lunch. Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Sean said they're not cooked in oil. They're cooked just in their own fat. And Wendy's
Mm-hmm.
never freezes their meat. It's always fresh. So fast food stuff in the middle of the day and a big steak at night, a Costco steak. You know, I can't stand that free range or grass-fed stuff. It doesn't taste as good. And ShawnBaker said from all his research, the difference is it's like 0.0001% as far as hormones or any kind of harmful stuff. And it's cheaper.
Yeah.
You can save money.
Yeah.
You don't have to buy the grass-fed.
That's
So
interesting,
anyways, but
'cause
some
that's
people, go ahead.
yeah. I was just gonna say that's on a good day, that's what I eat too, is hamburger patties. I make my own sometimes, and
Yeah, I do too sometimes. It was steak
yeah,
mostly.
and we eat
Sometimes
a
I'm
lot of steak.
traveling. Sometimes I traveling when I grab like traveling on the road. My wife is from Mexico, and she likes to
Hmm.
eat all her meat raw. I'm not kidding you,
Hmm.
raw. So,
Wow.
so we would go into a Whole Foods on the highway somewhere where we're driving. I go to Oregon all the time for work, and she'd pull in and grab a steak, and I'd get a organic roasted chicken, and we go over to
Hmm.
the eating court, and we'd sit beside a bunch of vegetarians, and they'd watch my wife chewing on this raw steak and me tearing this chicken apart, and they'd get up and leave. It was a part of our entertainment. So
Oh, I like that. We gotta hang out sometime. So
yeah, they just looked in disgust. And so then I actually started putting on a little bit too much weight. Not really fat,
mhm.
but just a little bit too much. So I did Jason Fung's thing, Dr. Jason Fung, and now I
Mhm.
eat once a day. I eat a big, huge steak, maybe
Mhm.
some fish, a little cheese, but I only eat once a day. I drink black coffee in the morning and buttered coffee sometimes at night with the meal. And I lost all the fat. I'm ripped at 67 years old, and I'm a good 190 pounds, which is like really perfect for me at 6'1". And
Mhm. Wow, that's
so,
awesome.
and I got nothing. I got no symptoms of any kind. My doctor quit wanting to do blood tests. She wanted to do it every 3 months, and she stopped because my health is so perfect now in every area except the cholesterol.
Yeah, which we know is not,
Yeah,
I mean, not the cause of heart problems
yeah,
anyway.
we know
So
it, but they don't know it. And
yeah,
and then
such a shame.
about 2 years into it, I went and got I asked my doctor, the heart specialist, if I could get another one of those calcium tests for the arteries because I wanted to see how worse it had got, and
Ooh,
he liked that idea.
yeah. How did that turn out?
A couple hundred points less, like the arteries
Wow.
were clearing up.
Yep. Well, it doesn't surprise me at all, but yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome. That must have shocked
it
him.
did. And he said, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, you told me it was genetic." "Well, it is." I said, "Well, how could it be genetic if it's changing?" He said, "Well, what did you quit doing?" I said, "Well, I like this line." I said to him, "I just quit eating vegetables, man. They were killing me." And of course I,
Yeah, that's
huh?
that. Wow. At that point they're like, get out of my office, because it goes against what they want to believe, right?
Yeah, I know.
So.
And he's overweight, and he's way younger than me, and he won't take statins. His cholesterol's higher than mine. It's crazy.
Mhm.
He wants me. He won't take statins, but he wants me to take statins. I said, "Well, how are you
Yeah.
doing it?" He said, "Well, I'm going to
Hmm.
do it by diet." I said, "Well, why can't I do it by diet?" He says, "It's your genetics." That's his common answer. So, anyways, that's pretty much the
Yeah.
story.
So frustrating.
Uh, I'm I'll never eat a
Wow.
vegetable. And I got some patients of mine that, friend of mine, I think you interviewed him, Randy, songster out of Oregon. He's one of a friend of mine in Grants Pass. He lost over 100 pounds, and basically his insulin, if he's on it, it's very little. And he's a
Oh,
carnivore.
I think I remember that interview. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think it was me that interviewed him, but I think I remember that watching that interview. Yeah.
Yeah, they and he lost over 100 pounds. His psoriasis, he had psoriasis all his life. It was terrible. Basically disappeared. And so that's one guy. And then another lady of mine who had Crohn's disease. She's a patient of mine. She decided to do this thing after Crohn's was killing her. And she went on all meat. And then like a month, it was gone. She doesn't even know she has it anymore.
Yep. That's amazing. I've interviewed two that were like that too.
And another lady with diverticulitis really bad, that was gone. And then I had another lady that had really bad arthritis, like her fingers were all curled up and stuff. And today it's no more arthritis. So can't talk many people into it, but
and you mentioned you have patients. Just so the viewers know, what kind of work are you in?
Oh, I'm called a rolfer. It's deep muscle work and mixed with chiropractic. It's the Rolf Institute in Boulder, Colorado, is where you have to go if you want to be a rolfer. And it was started by a lady named Ida Rolf, and that's why it's called rolfing. Yes.
Okay.
Body work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep. So, wow. So, your arthritis got better. Your calcified arteries got better.
Yep.
You got rid of the cane. You lost weight. You gained muscle. So, have you? Let's see. Have you been able to influence any others in your personal life? Like, I know some of your patients you mentioned, but like family, friends.
Not a single family member will do it. Of course, I have a family of alcoholics. See, I don't drink. I used to drink. I quit drinking 16 years ago. And if you drink, if you like to drink, of course, you're going to mess up all these diets.
Yeah.
And because you're adding sugar and carbs. And so if they drink, they will never listen because they might have to quit drinking or cut way back at least to a glass or two of wine, maybe. But so mostly my family is all like that. They drink. And my wife's family is all Mexican, and they they got that delicious fruit that's fresh all the time. They eat fruit at every breakfast, and delicious yogurts, and all those tacos and those enchiladas, and it's of course delicious, right? And of course I loved it, and so did my wife. But now when we go visit them, we drive down to the local Costco and buy a steak, and we eat a big steak, and they think we're crazy. Even though we're slim and in shape. My wife is 15 years older than her sister, and her sister used to be like a model. And slowly, I hope she never watches this interview, she's gaining weight, and my wife is now lean, mean fighting machine, you know.
Yeah. I have with my grandma. We were able to convert my grandma to the carnivore way of eating. And she is the slimmest she's been since she was in her like late teens, early 20s, when she used to compete in beauty pageants. And now all of the relatives that used to be the skinny ones while grandma was overweight are now the overweight ones and grandma's skinny. So yeah.
It's amazing. It's life transforming. And I have many patients who are vegetarians. I never try and talk them out of it. They ask me, what do you eat? And I'll tell them, and they just look at me like I'm a space monster or something. So most of them do it for what they believe are ethical reasons, you know, trying to save animals and all that kind of stuff. And
it's a shame.
It's a brainwashing. It's a mass media brainwashing which has occurred, and started with the what did the what did the Tim Noakes say that was done by that church group in the 1920s? It affected Congress because they had a lot of money. Seventh-day Adventists. They were vegetarians, and they went to Congress, and Congress liked this idea because it could help the economy.
Yeah, because there were so many wheat and corn farmers in
Yeah,
the states.
that's why,
So
that's why they made that food triangle up, and it should be the other way around.
yep. And weren't they the ones that started the breakfast cereals too? A lot of the
Yeah.
General Mills and all of them. Yep, I remember reading about them. So yeah, it's a shame, but
I tell them when they tell me, I said, well, that guy Jesus that you guys worship, he ate meat, You're supposed to do like he did.
exactly. Yep, I
We're getting a
recall.
little,
Getting a little off topic, but whatever.
yeah.
It's supposed to be an entertaining podcast, so give us a break. But so yeah, what advice? I guess I'll ask my last question. What advice would you give others, let's say in your age group that had similar health problems, arthritis? I know how crippling that can be. My mother had it very badly. So what advice would you give them if they're listening to this? Maybe they haven't committed fully to the carnivore diet, but they've heard about it and they're thinking about it.
Well, I would say try it for 3 months. I think if you
Mhm.
do it, if you don't cheat for 3 months and you go through, the first couple of weeks, your body is a little lethargic and you get maybe low energy for a couple of weeks while your body adjusts to burning only fat instead of sugar. Just stick it out for 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, if there's not quite a significant change, I'll eat my hat.
Mhm.
But you have to be honest. Then you didn't cheat. And it will change your life. It will change your life. Your brain will get sharper. My memory is better. My energy, it's just like it's moved back like 30 years.
Yep, it's true. I've heard that from a lot of people. So yeah, it is life changing.
And if you're worried
And
about Alzheimer's, that's the perfect key. You won't get it if you're eating this diet. You
yep,
just will not get it.
I've heard Alzheimer's referred to as type 3 diabetes. So because it definitely related to diet, I think.
They're
There's probably some genetic factors in there too, but yeah, it is life changing, and the success stories just keep pouring in. So it is changing things slowly, and people are hearing about it and getting on the carnivore train, right? So
Yeah, and I don't advise a lot of chicken meat because they feed soy to the chicken. Even though I do it once in a while,
mhm.
they feed soy, even
Yep.
to our organic chickens.
Even that aside, I don't find chicken that satisfying myself. Beef is the most satisfying.
Yes, for me it's beef too, and
Hmm.
I like
Yeah,
lamb, but beef is my favorite for sure.
yeah, yep. And you hear that a lot. It's most satiating. So yeah.
Well, the
All right.
Anderson family, you've heard of them? They're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
They're amazing. How many long? 25 years now. Only steak and water.
Wow. That's
Have you heard of them?
I have, but I haven't looked into it too much. I'm gonna have to look that up. But yeah,
Google it. The Anderson Carnivore family, and the kids. That's all they've ate since they were born. They look like models. They're super healthy, big healthy teeth, and all the kids and the wife, and he's 60 something and he's ripped.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna look that up as soon as we're done
Yeah.
here. Yeah, that's impressive. But I
It's
mean, I've
like,
heard of I've heard of people that went exploring like in the Arctic and they lived with the Eskimos or the Inuits as they prefer to be called now.
yeah,
Uh, and they would eat the fat and give most of the meat to the dogs. And they didn't have scurvy. He never got scurvy. He lived with them for like 2 years. So, but there's never been a vegetarian tribe on Earth, right? So, yeah.
well, I don't take any vitamin C anymore. I haven't for 3 years. I don't need it.
Hmm.
I don't
Yep.
have scurvy. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
I forget that the name of that book was The Fat of the Land or something, written by that guy that went and spent the time up north for 5 years, that scientist back in 1930 or something. That was one of ShawnBaker's
Yeah,
guys.
that might be the one I was thinking of. Maybe I got the details wrong because I watched that video a few years ago. So, yeah, but yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah, and okay.
Yep. Well, I guess we can end it there. I try to keep the interviews around 30 minutes. I think we might have been a bit over, but it was interesting anyway. So, thank
Thank
you
you
very
very much.
much, Gary.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. All right. You have a good day. Take
Nice
care.
meeting you.